cut my hair and change my name. Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop houses, driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the drugs come cheap. Well, I'll stay skinny cause we just want
short videos, and I'm not going to give you all the details on what I'm doing because some things I'm going to keep close to the vest. It's just the way it's going to be. But I'm going to give you a look at the start of what we're doing for this FE build for our car Legacy. Let's take a look. We're going to start this first part, and again, I'm going to try to keep these videos simple and short. I'm going to start the first part talking about the block. So, we've had the block 0 decked, and the block is bored 30 over stock. So this is actually a 4080 bore now. Stock is 450. This is now 480 bore. Some of the things we've done to this block that differentiate between the way the factory done it. Now, let me pause right here. Let me take one break right here. A lot of folks, when they build an engine for a race car, go with a lot of aftermarket parts. Aftermarket block, aftermarket rods, aftermarket pistons, aftermarket cranks, heads, to the point where if I was building a 390 in that direction, the only thing I would have is something that looked like an FE. No problem if that's the way you want to go, that's fine. My budget will not allow me to go that direction, so I have to fall back on skill sets. Now, with that being said, I also get quite the thrill out of taking Ford's actual equipment, tweaking a few things, and making it perform better than Ford ever did, but making it perform, even if the life expectancy is not the same, making it perform to almost the same quality as some of the higher end builds. And the key word there is almost. But you can make factory Ford stuff work really well. You can make factory stuff work good on a track. And the way Henry Ford designed it, we'll say Henry Ford, you know what I mean. The way Henry Ford designed this, I'm not going to stray from his design. I'm just going to correct some errors that I feel like are in his design. So let's take a look at this block. All right, so here's what we've done. One of the first things we've done is we came through here, and all these are supposed to have press-in plugs in them. Well, we came through, I don't know if you can see it, we tapped all these, so now they'll get threaded plugs put in. I have nightmares at night about one of these popping out, so not saying it ever will, but every one of these now, and the ends, down the oil galley, all these now are threaded for pipe plugs to go in, so that we don't have to ever worry about that. Now that takes it away. Something else a lot of folks like to do, anybody that knows the FE knows you kind of want to restrict the oil flow to the head. Slow it down, if you will. Slow the volume down, if you will. Now, the common trick for people to do is they take a carburetor jet and put it into the head. And that's how they do it. They restrict it by making the orifice in the head smaller by putting the carburetor jet in. And that works. There's no problem with the way to do that. But you may want to upgrade over time, and if you do, then you've got to change it each time. So I modify the block instead. And this oil right here, if you look in there, it is also threaded. Now the reason it's threaded is because I actually make a so you get a visual understanding of what I'm thinking about. Think about a set screw, an Allen-headed set screw with a small hole drilled in it, a predetermined measurement, a small hole drilled into it. Now we tap and thread that, and I put that in there. So now when my head goes on top of it, if I want to change heads, everything, the block's what's modified, not the head. So if I want to change and go with different heads later down the road, I can. What else we done? Line honed. I always need to line hone these because the technology back then, I've never actually got an FE block that was actually perfectly straight. They all kind of, just a little bit. Now, if you're building a street engine, it's not enough to even notice it. So it's not anything you got to worry about. The thing we had to do with this one is because, again, we're talking about factory production parts here. We've got some production let's call them made on Friday pistons, and the size in them very, 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 very minutely. Not enough that if it was a street engine, it would even ever matter. But in our case, we want our piston to wall clearance to be exact. We have a predetermined number that we want them to be. Again, you need to figure out what that is for yours. We know what it is for ours. We have a predetermined gap we want between the cylinder wall and the piston. And we want that to be exact on every one of these. Again, we're trying to get all we can out of a factory design. Now that's some of the things that we've done to the block. There's a couple things we've done to the block that I'll keep close to the vest, but that is some of the things we've done to the block. Now, the big thing that probably mind boggles some people is boring the cylinders different. Now, when I say boring the cylinders different, I'm not saying one cylinder's 30 over, one cylinder's 10 over, none of that. Between our largest piston to our smallest piston, the variance on them was less than 7 thousandths of an inch. But when you've got your variable you want between the piston and wall, I want them all to be exactly the same. So over the course of this engine, from biggest to smallest, there is about a 7 thousandths variant. Again, keep in mind we're born at 30,000 over, so 7 thousandths is not a lot. Some of these pistons, for instance, here's what I'm saying. Some of these pistons, for instance, if you measure these pistons, and let's say they're supposed to be, measure 4080, so they're 30 over pistons. Let's use that 080 number. So these are all supposed to be 080 pistons. Some of them are 079. Some of them are 078 and a half. Some of them are 080. Some of them are, you know what I'm saying? So that's just a product of mass production. True hand, you call and order a set of custom pistons, they're all going to be the same. But in my world, they're not. So we take the block and modify the block to work with the piston because we have them. And it's not like we're ever going to change them out of this motor. So these are a few of the things that we do to the block to ensure that we get the maximum performance out of a Henry Ford design. When you come to the racetrack and you look under the hood of my car, you're going to see a date coded correct block. You will see date coded correct heads. It's all there. This thing is going, with the exception of the intake, this thing is going to look like it came from Ford. Is that a requirement? No. Is that something we have to do? No. That's something that gives me pride in knowing that I've done it. So this video is about the block. The next video we'll talk about making factory rods live. Stay tuned.